Greetings, YouTube. Some of you will remember a video I did called Ocean Going Disaster, I think that's what it was calling. And it dealt with the idea of a conventional uh, ocean liner in a post-apocalyptic setting and what could happen. Um, and I mean, it was a good idea, and I liked the idea. But recently I've heard of something that was even a little more interesting to me for two reasons. One, it's a residential ocean liner, and two, I have a link to the floor plans of the individual types of staterooms that can be found on that liner. So that means that us, gamers, now have a template to use of what the actual floor plans look like in each individual type of stateroom. Now, this is a large ship. It's real, and it has anywhere between a stateroom of kind of like a conventional ocean-going liner, a large one now, like a queen-size bed in it, up to ones that have like 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms. And what's interesting is you have to have a certain level of money to buy one. For example, you must be worth $10 million and must have like you got to have made like $2 million in the last year and projected to make that much in the next 2 years. So they don't want poor people involved. They don't want people who are boom and bust. So people who just hit a lottery, they're probably not going to get on board. They're going to have to show that they can have some kind of ability to manage that money and have continual growth, because there are high upkeep fees. Because on board of this real liner, there is a crew of 280. So we're going to pretend that this is a cyberpunk style future. And this particular ocean liner is a little bit bigger. It has 2,500 residents on board, 20% of which are under the age of 19. So 500 kids are on board this vessel. And that goes from babes in arms up to 18. It has 200 human servants and a very robust, versatile, and varied robotic system of AIs and machines and things like that. So even though it has a large population of people, you don't need as many humans. Mostly the humans are there because the human residents are very wealthy and they like being served by people because they're arrogant bastards. Yes, I have to freely admit, I often have a dim view of the uber wealthy. Now, so we have this large vessel. It's a cyberpunk type future. And in that case, this could be a floating UN of corporate nation states with CEOs from all over the place. So essentially this could be the headquarters of the world, where they vacation, where they stop by, where they want to get away from the world, traveling a whole lot in international waters away from anyone else's particular control. And the real liner I'm referencing here, and the one out of the floor plans I have, is a libertarian wet dream, because all the people that live on board get to vote on where this liner goes every year. So they vote and say, okay, next year we're going to go do this route. But you get a different number of votes depending on how big your stateroom is. So if you have a 500 square foot stateroom, you get 500 votes. If you have a 1,500 square foot stateroom, you get 1,500 votes. I'm sure the political alliances are quite intriguing. Currently, I believe it's on a tour going through the Mediterranean, out down Madagascar way, eventually headed to China and Australia or something like that. So it's a pretty long route. And they may be going all the way around the world this year. They could, who knows? Or they may just decide once they hit Australia and they're going to figure out where they're going to go next the next year. So my version is, again, 2,500 people. 20% of them are under the age of 19. And they're in international waters when Cyber Generation's Carbon Plague hits, which is why I talked about Cyber Generation a few videos ago, because it's important to have a reference. So go watch that Cyber Generation video to give you a rough idea what Cyber Generation is, what the Carbon Plague is. So the version of the Carbon Plague I'll be using for this particular scenario is very harsh. The plague hits the ship, and all the adults die, with the exception of 2. And both of these individuals are full conversion cyborgs. Now the first is a woman bodyguard. She worked for a client who wanted a bodyguard that blended in perfectly, so she looks pure human, even though She is a walking death machine, and she is essentially a brain and a few organs inside a torso, and the rest is completely robotic. Why both of these people are around and the carbon plague hasn't affected them is a mystery. Up to you, or you could just not worry about it. She kind of likes the fact that she is the only adult, or one of the only 2 adults on this vessel, and now is no longer an employee of somebody else, and is carving up herself a little fiefdom. She is a literal little tin martinet. Dun-dun-dun. The other is a bartender. He worked in a bar that was kind of Fallout 4 retro 50s vibe. So he looks like a Fallout 4 style Assaultron. And he's a bartender. And that's all he is. Now, the big advantage he has, besides being alive, is that he can slot skill chips. Of course, the other cyborg can as well, but he's more overt about it because he just can't hide the fact that he is a cyborg. None of the kids can do this because none of the kids have cybernetics. So if he can get his hands on the chips from the ship, and sorry for the screw up, I apologize. But if he can get his hands on the chips, he would be able to help operate the ship much more efficiently than can any of the miners. And so you've got these 2 factions. Some of the kids are coalescing around the security person, who they all think is a normal human who's just magic or something because she's not dead. Some are coalescing around the bartender, and all of the ones that are between the ages of 8 and 18 have superpowers from the Cyber Generation game. So you have some really interesting things going on here. Those under 8 have to be taken care of by the survivors. So that throws another level of complexity into this. You also have the AI that runs the ship. Now, the AI that runs the ship could just be out there to do what it can to keep its passengers alive, absolutely honest, doing the best it can in a horrible situation. Or it could have been infected by the carbon plague. Or it could be running on software that was programmed, protocols that were programmed into it, which may be running counter to either of the factions they're growing on board. And it could be doing things that are definitely not in the best interest of the people on the ship. It's up to the GM, and the AI may not even know all of the protocols that are operating in the background. Think Iron Giant, where he may want to be doing one thing, but suddenly something else takes over. Now, there are things on the ship that need to be taken care of. The ship will say it's nuclear powered or fusion powered, so power isn't a problem, and water isn't a problem. The food stores, all the luxury items, are going to run out pretty quick, as will the drugs and alcohol. But there are hydroponics on board for fresh fruits and vegetables, and the ship can produce single-cell organic protein, or SCOP. So they're not going to starve, but people are going to take control of these. Some may take control of the hydroponics, some are going to take control of the SCOP fats. Eventually they may figure out that you can grow weed or poppies and make alcohol. Weed grows that, or make alcohol from fruit or vegetables, vodka. So there may be drugs in the future, given this runs long enough for them to figure this out. Which, let's face it, they're going to want to figure this out. Many of the older people probably already have a history of understanding the use of drugs. They may already be addicts in some cases, so they're going to want to have access to drugs, and so they're going to create what they need. And of course, you also need to have independent players. Miners that want nothing to do with any of these factions, and they just want to party like it's 1999. What happens when this party runs out? What do they do? Where's the ship going? Who's controlling its destination? Is anyone controlling it? Is the AI aligning itself with one of the 2 main factions, with the security person, or with the bartender, who's a reluctant hero at best? He was just a bartender. Suddenly he finds himself in charge of a motley crew of superhero teenagers. So this offers a lot of options here, a lot of possibilities. It's a little closed environment, so you can really ramp up the tension. And it's full of ideas and complexities. And it's going to be dark. What happens when those little kids need medical attention and there may not be, and eventually the auto docs don't work? Can they scramble up what they need from skill chips and from books and references and computer archives? You know, there may very well be the Library of Congress on disk, but do you know what to look up? Or do you stand by and watch your 6-year-old brother die? Is that toddler girl over there injured and you can't stop the bleeding? What happens when the really ugly side of humanity comes out? When the people that control water or food or drugs want something from other people. So this could be as dark as you want it to go. Robbie might love it. Should love this. Ronnie, rather say we're not Robbie. Ronnie should love this. I apologize. I don't know why I said Robbie. Because this is going to be able to get as dark as he wants it to get. There will be weapons on board, of course, because this is cyberpunk. And you can, of course, also make weapons, as I can attest. Making weapons from found objects is something I do as a hobby, so I know it's possible. So you could have, for example, some of the things from Death Valley Free Prison might be making nice references for what's going on in the ship. You could like say, okay, what do you explain to me what you're doing, and the GM can decide, okay, that's a legitimate thing you say you could do. You could scavenge that stuff from an ocean-going liner, or you might find this in someone's stateroom. Once you've, of course, hopefully gotten rid of all the bodies, because you need to get rid of them pretty darn quick because they're dangerous. They're a source of really unpleasant things. You haven't got them off board. But fortunately, getting them off board is not difficult, and you toss them into the ocean, and for a very short period, sharks are very happy. So I guess it comes down to, what do you want to do with this scenario? So I'll link to the PDF, so you can go look at the PDF of the floor plans. I've already saved a copy to my hard drive. I have no idea about how long it'll be available or not, so you might want to grab that as soon as possible. And I wish I had saved the link. I think it was a Metafilter comment that brought this up. But I guess if you really wanted to try to go look it up on Metafilter, I didn't. I don't think I'm going to. But at least you'll have an access to the PDF of the staterooms themselves, which I think is, to my mind, the most important resource here, because it gives you a real idea of what you're looking at. So what are we going to do with our dystopian floating condominium or floating ecology? What's left? What are the bots on board doing? Who's controlling them? Who's reprogramming them? What are they doing with them? What kind of entertainment bots are there? What kind of sex bots are there? What kind of cyber animals are there? What kind of bioware is available? Will they be able to find things and adapt it to these teens as they get a little older? How long will this run for? Do you want to just run it from the get-go, or do you want to run it a few years down the line? Or do you want to start out with the plague and then jump forward a bit to see how it's gone? How dark does it get? Where are you going to take this ocean liner?